After I made the promise to myself, I thought I had become stronger. I thought the promise would protect me. I thought that if I told myself enough times that I would rise, then the pain would become smaller. But pain does not disappear because a child makes a promise. Sometimes a promise helps you stand during the day. But at night, when everything becomes quiet, the heart tells the truth. In episode 9 of my life, I had promised myself that one day I would become strong. I promised that I would not remain small. I promised that I would not remain dependent. I promised that my father's absence would not destroy me. I promised that one day I would build something of my own. That promise became a secret fire inside me. But even fire needs something to keep it alive. And for me, that something became prayer. Not the kind of prayer spoken loudly in front of people. Not the kind of prayer full of beautiful words. Mine was quiet, hidden, sometimes broken, sometimes angry, sometimes confused, sometimes only a whisper inside my chest. I did not always know what to say to God. How does a child explain a wound he does not fully understand? How does a child ask for help when he has already learned not to ask too much from people? How does a child pray about a father he blames but still wants? At night, when the house of other people became silent, I would lie awake and listen. I listened to the breathing of the house. I listened to distant sounds outside. I listened to the wind, to footsteps, to doors, to silence. And inside that silence, I would speak to God. Sometimes I asked him why. Why was my father not there? Why did my mother have to suffer so much? Why did my brother have to become angry so young? Why did people who said they wanted to help also make me feel like a burden? Why did I have to grow up in a house that did not feel like mine? Why did other children seem to receive so easily what I kept praying for? I did not always expect an answer, but asking God felt different from asking people. People could become tired of my questions. People could judge my feelings. People could tell me to be grateful and stop complaining. But God could hear what I was afraid to say aloud, so I told him the truth. I told him I was tired. I told him I was angry. I told him I missed a father I did not really know. I told him I hated the fact that I still wanted him. I told him I wanted to become strong, but I was still afraid. I told him I did not want to remain in pain forever. Those prayers were not perfect. They were not organized. They did not sound like the prayers adults made in public. They were the prayers of a child carrying too much. Some nights my prayer was only one sentence. God, do you see me? That question mattered to me. Because when people overlook your pain, you begin to wonder if heaven sees it. When people praise the house that shelters you but do not see what happens inside your heart, you wonder if anyone knows the full story. When your father is absent and your voice feels too small to change anything, you wonder if God is listening. So I asked him, do you see me? Do you see how careful I have become? Do you see how I say I am fine when I am not? Do you see how my brother's anger is not disrespect but pain? Do you see my mother's tiredness? Do you see the hands that hurt? Do you see the child behind my silence? That hidden prayer became my secret place. During the day, I worked. During the day, I obeyed. During the day, I swallowed words. During the day, I carried the promise I had made to myself. But at night, I brought everything to God. Not because I understood faith deeply. I was still young. But I needed someone who could hold what I could not say. And slowly, prayer became the one place where I did not have to pretend. I did not have to be mature there. I did not have to be useful there. I did not have to prove I was grateful. I did not have to hide my tears. Before God, I could be a child again. That was important, because life had forced me to grow too early, but prayer allowed me to become small without shame. In prayer, I could admit that I wanted a father. I could admit that I wanted protection. I could admit that I wanted someone to come for me. I could admit that I was tired of being strong. But even in prayer, my father remained complicated. Sometimes I prayed for him. Then I became angry at myself for doing it. I would think about him somewhere far away, living his life, while we carried the consequences of his absence. And yet a part of me wondered if he was suffering too. That thought did not come from forgiveness. Not yet. It came from confusion. I had heard small things from adults, pieces of his story, hints that his own life had not gone well, words that suggested he had made mistakes and was paying for them. But I did not want to feel pity for him. Pity felt like betrayal. How could I pity the man whose absence had caused so much pain? How could I pray for the person I blamed? So some nights I prayed against my own softness. God, help me stop wanting him. But the prayer never seemed to work. The longing remained, hidden under anger, hidden under promises, hidden under pride, but still there. Other nights I prayed a different prayer. God, if he is alive, make him remember us. That prayer frightened me. Because if God made him remember us, maybe he would come back. And if he came back, I didn't know what I would do. Would I run to him? Would I reject him? Would I stand beside my brother and say it was too late? Would I cry? Would I ask him where he had been? Would I forgive him? I did not know. So sometimes, after asking God to make him remember us, I wished I could take the prayer back. I was afraid of my own desire. A child can want something and fear receiving it. I wanted my father to return, but I feared the pain of his return. Because if he returned and did not care, the wound would become deeper. If he returned with excuses, my anger would become stronger. If he returned and left again, I might break in a way I could not repair. So I prayed carefully, not with full confidence, with fear. God, if he comes back, do not let him hurt us again. That became one of my hidden prayers. I did not know that years later, this prayer would become part of the foundation of our reconciliation. I did not know that when my father finally returned, I would remember those nights. I would remember asking God to make him come back differently, not proud, not careless, not demanding, but repentant. I did not know the word repentance deeply then, but I knew what I needed. I needed him to come back changed. A father returning without change would be another wound. A father returning with pride would be another humiliation. A father returning only to claim authority would not heal anything. Even as a child, I understood that return alone would not be enough. He would have to return with a broken heart. He would have to return ready to repair. He would have to return ready to face our pain. But at that time, I could not explain it that way, so I prayed simply, God, if he comes back, let him come back good. That was the prayer of a wounded son. Small words, deep meaning. I prayed for my mother too. Her suffering was one of the first things that taught me compassion. I saw how much she carried. Even when I was not with her, I carried her in my mind. I remembered her face. I remembered her hands. I remembered her strength. I remembered the way she tried to protect us from bitterness, even when bitterness had reasons to grow. So I prayed for her. God, give my mother strength. God, do not let her suffer forever. God, one day let me help her. God, one day let me make her proud. That prayer connected to the promise I had made in episode 9. I did not want to rise only for myself. I wanted to rise for her. I wanted my future to become an answer to her sacrifices. I wanted one day to remove heaviness from her life. I wanted her to see that her struggle had not been wasted. A child who watches his mother suffer often develops a serious heart. He wants to become useful quickly. He wants to become successful quickly. He wants to turn love into rescue. That was me. I wanted to rescue her, even before I knew how to rescue myself. I prayed for my brother too. Though I did not always understand him, I loved him. I saw the fire in him. I saw how anger protected him. I saw how he carried pain like a shield. I knew he was not simply difficult. He was wounded. So sometimes I prayed for him. God, calm my brother's heart. But then I would pause, because part of me did not want his anger to disappear completely. His anger remembered what the rest of the world wanted to forget. His anger defended our pain. His anger protected us from easy explanations. So I changed the prayer. God, heal my brother without making him forget. That was the kind of prayer a child makes when he has seen too much. I wanted him to be free. But I did not want our father's absence to be treated as something small. Nothing about it was small. It had entered our house. It had shaped our childhood. It had followed us under other people's roofs. It had made my brother hard. It had made me silent. It had made my mother tired. It had turned help into dependence. It had made love feel uncertain. So even when I prayed, I did not want the truth erased. I wanted healing, but not denial. I wanted peace, but not lies. I wanted forgiveness one day, maybe, but not without repentance. Again, I did not yet know how to say all of this clearly, but my spirit knew. My hidden prayers carried meanings my mouth could not explain. There were nights when I did not ask for anything. I only imagined God sitting near me. That thought comforted me, because I did not always feel like I had someone near. The house had people, but presence is not the same as closeness. You can live among people and still feel alone. You can hear voices all day and still feel unheard. You can eat at a table and still feel like a stranger. But in those hidden prayers, I felt less alone. Not always. There were nights when silence remained silence. There were nights when I cried and felt no answer. There were nights when the pain seemed bigger than faith. But even then, the act of praying kept something alive in me. It kept me from becoming only anger. It kept me from becoming only bitterness. It kept me from becoming only survival. Prayer gave my pain somewhere to go. Without prayer, maybe my heart would have become like a closed room with no window. But prayer opened a small window. Through that window, hope could breathe. That hope was different from the hope of my early childhood. It was not innocent anymore. It had seen too much. It knew people could fail. It knew fathers could leave. It knew helpers could hurt. It knew children could grow too early. But it still believed that God could turn a story. Maybe not quickly. Maybe not the way I imagined. But somehow, one night after repeating my promise to myself again, I prayed something I had never prayed before. God, make me better than my pain. Those words came from a place deeper than anger. I did not want to become cruel. I did not want to become someone who used suffering as an excuse to hurt others. I did not want to become a man who abandoned people because he had been abandoned. I did not want to become so hard that love could not enter me. But I was afraid. I was afraid pain would shape me more than love. I was afraid my brother's anger would become my only example. I was afraid my father's absence would teach me to run from responsibility too. I was afraid that the very thing I hated in him might one day appear in me. So I prayed, make me better than my pain. That prayer stayed with me. Even when I did not remember saying it, it stayed. It became part of the invisible foundation of my life. Long before I built anything in the city, something was being built inside me. A foundation made of suffering, a foundation made of promises, a foundation made of hidden prayers. At the time, I did not know foundations mattered. I only knew I was trying to survive. But later, my father would teach me that no building can stand if the foundation is weak. He would say that what is hidden below the ground matters as much as what people see above it. When he said that years later, I would think of these nights. The nights no one saw. The nights when I prayed quietly. The nights when my heart was being formed in secret. The nights when God heard the child nobody fully understood. Those nights were my first foundation, not stone, not cement, not money, prayer. Pain turned towards heaven. That was where the first real strength began. Not the strength of pretending, not the strength of saying I was fine, not the strength of promising I would never need anyone. A deeper strength. The strength to keep my heart alive while life was trying to harden it. The strength to speak to God when I could not speak to people. The strength to ask for healing before I even knew what healing would require. The strength to imagine a future where I was not ruled by abandonment. That hidden prayer did not change everything immediately. The next morning I still woke in the house of other people. The same rules were there. The same carefulness was there. The same memories were there. My father was still absent. My brother was still angry. My mother was still tired. The hands that hurt had not disappeared, but I was not empty. I had spoken. Even if only to God, I had spoken. And that mattered. A child who cannot speak his pain to anyone may begin to believe his pain has no value. But when I prayed, I believed, even a little, that my pain had reached somewhere higher than the house, higher than the people who judged me, higher than the father who was not there, higher than the circumstances that made me feel trapped. Prayer lifted my pain to a place where it could be held without being used against me. That is why it became my secret refuge. Sometimes I prayed with words, sometimes with tears, sometimes with silence, sometimes only by looking into the darkness and believing that God could see what I could not explain. And slowly, prayer began to protect a part of me that pain wanted to destroy. It protected my ability to love, not perfectly, not fully, but enough. Enough that years later, when my father returned, there would still be something in me capable of listening. Enough that repentance would not find my heart completely dead. Enough that forgiveness, though difficult, would still have a place to begin. I did not know that then. I did not know that my hidden prayers were preparing me for a future I could not imagine. I did not know that God was not only hearing my cry, but also preserving my heart for the day my father would come back. I did not know that the son who prayed in pain would one day become the man who forgave. At that time, I only knew that I needed help. And when no human answer came, I turned to heaven. That was episode 10 of my life. Not a public victory, not a visible change, not the arrival of my father, not the end of suffering, only a child in the darkness, whispering prayers no one else heard, a child asking God to see him, a child asking God to help his mother, a child asking God to heal his brother, a child asking God what to do with the father he blamed but still wanted, a child asking to become stronger than pain, a child who had made a promise to himself but still needed God to keep him from becoming bitter. And maybe that was the beginning of something greater, because before my father repented, I prayed. Before he returned, I prayed. Before forgiveness entered the story, I prayed. Before the edifice rose in the city, I prayed. Before I knew how the story would end, I placed my broken heart before God and asked him to make something good out of it. The answer did not come immediately, but it was already moving. Far away from me, in places I could not see, my father's own mistakes were beginning to catch up with him. His pride was not as strong as it once seemed. His life was not as free as I imagined. His absence was not giving him peace. The road that would one day bring him back had not yet opened, but God was already preparing it. I did not know. I only prayed. And in that hidden prayer, a wounded son kept a small light alive. A light that would one day help him recognize repentance when it finally stood at the door.